You're lying. I never hit you.
Lion. Here's a phrase I've used before in movie discussions with my movie friends, and maybe you have too. Emotional porn. As weird as it may sound, I don't actually think it's a comically hyperbolic turn of phrase. In the case of some movies, it's more appropriate than you might think. You go in pretty much knowing what you're going to get and how it's going to make you feel. Then you watch it and things happen more or less how you thought they were going to happen. Maybe a couple of moments are particularly intense or passionate. And you pretty much react to it how you think you're going to react to it. Then you go home satisfied. You just cry instead of touch yourself. Or whatever people do when they watch porn. And just for the record, I'm not trying to pick on emotional porn movies. I think a similar analogy could be made for explosion porn, mindfuck porn, the courtship of attractive white people porn, and Sly Stallone kicking ass porn. Just to clarify that last one, Sly Stallone kicking ass, long pause, porn. And honestly, I'm not even looking down on emotional porn by the given definition. It can definitely be done well, provided that it manages to feel significant. Does Lion qualify as emotional porn? Yeah, for the most part. And that's not to say it's bad by any means. But if you've seen the trailer, this video assumes that you have, then you pretty much have seen the movie. That's not to say the trailer necessarily gives too much away. I think it does a fine job of representing the movie for what it is, which is the whole point of a trailer. But the story is simple enough that everything that happens can be easily deduced from the trailer. If you have a friend that has only seen the trailer and a friend that has seen the actual movie, and you ask both friends, hey, what happens in Lion? Friend 2 won't have much more insight than friend 1. Also, congrats on having at least 2 friends. Which I guess is an anecdotal way to say that 95% of the movie can be summed up in 2 or 3 sentences. Like, the first half-ish of the movie, the main character, Saru, is a 5-year-old kid who gets lost in a foreign country where he doesn't speak the language. Things happen to him, and it's a very tense and interesting and at times gut-wrenching hour. And the 5-year-old Indian kid that got to play Saru is amazing, despite never acting before and barely speaking English. Then he gets adopted by an Australian couple. Again, this is all in the trailer. And what happens in the second half of the movie, the emotional backbone, the point of it all, was more or less captured in its entirety by a 3-minute Google commercial from 3 years ago. So I guess the big question is, does this feel significant? Yes and no. One way to assess that question is by asking what's at stake. On the hero's journey, what is the cost of failure? To be fair, in the first half, when we follow 5-year-old Saru, everything is at stake. It's a small child in real danger, and it's his mortal well-being at stake. And like I said, that shit's compelling. But in the second half, the cost of failure is he doesn't find his mother and brother, and he continues living his prosperous life with his loving and attentive adoptive parents. I don't want to take anything away from the struggle that I'm sure many adopted children go through not knowing their birth parents. And I definitely don't want to take away from the terror that both a mother and child would feel if they were ever separated, and the immeasurable desire that they must feel to be reunited. But, not to sound cynical or unempathetic, but 25 years have passed. Speaking in generalities, i.e. not as someone who's seen the movie, if Saru succeeds in finding his mother and brother, I'm sure that it would be, no exaggeration, one of the greatest moments of their lives. Saru would learn so much about where he came from, his mother would be able to finally know that her son was alive, and they would both be able to bask in the inviolable bond of family. Period, full stop, I acknowledge that. But if he doesn't succeed in finding his brother and mother, he's in the exact same place he was already in, which, as I've said, is a pretty good place with a pretty good life. And to be perfectly fair, maybe his mother and brother have struggled beyond comprehension over losing Saru, and they've spent every waking moment for the last 25 years looking for him, and the only thing that can fix their lives is meeting adult Saru.
Do you have any idea what it's like knowing my real brother and mother spent every day of their lives looking for me? Huh? How every day my real brother screams my name. Can you imagine the pain they must be in not knowing where I am? Huh? 25 years, Luce. 25!
Yes, that's a possibility, but I think that's a different movie. Lion is Saru's story. He's the protagonist, and it's his personal journey that the movie chooses to follow, because it's more compelling. And in focusing on Saru himself, I'm pretty convinced he'll be fine if he doesn't find them. He's been fine for 25 years. The plot of the second half is sparked by the availability of technology, not necessarily by a immediate, pressing, life-changing want or need. This is all a long way for me to say that I really liked Lion. I just didn't love it. And I felt the need to give a 900-word lead-in to explain in detail why I didn't love it, because it seems a lot of people really love it.
I'm literally sitting here. I didn't even want to look at you because I'll have tears in my eyes. Lion. Lion. See the movie Lion if you haven't already. I watched it 3 times. I'm like getting choked up even talking about it.
If you loved it, great. I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong, but can we at least agree that Lion is a 1-hour story with a 3 to 5 minute epilogue that they expanded to be a 2-hour movie? Yes, there's more nuance to his search beyond what's shown in the commercial. For example, the profound guilt he feels, like he's being ungrateful to his amazingly generous adoptive parents by searching for his birth mother. And yeah, there's a good scene where he expresses that guilt. And there's another good scene where he talks to his adoptive mother about it. Those 2 scenes alone were basically enough to yield 2 Oscar nominations for the parties involved. Speaking of which, I personally loved Slumdog Millionaire, but I kind of thought Dev Patel gave one of the weaker performances in the movie.
I am your dishwasher.
Not the case here. He's fantastic in Lion. But those 2 good scenes don't fill an hour. Lion is a fine movie, and it's certainly affecting, but in a fleeting way. Looking at some of the other nominees, I had strong emotional reactions to Arrival, Moonlight, and Manchester by the Sea, and I was still thinking about them days later. I mean, it's now months later, and I still think about them from time to time. I also had an emotional reaction to Lion, but then I forgot about it. Just my theory, but I think the difference might be that Arrival, Moonlight, and Manchester all had other things going for them outside of the emotional reaction they elicit from the audience. With Lion, that's kind of all it's got, in addition to the "isn't it cool that this happened" aspect. You can decide for yourself if that's enough.